The station floated in deep space like a rusted coin forgotten in the dark. It was old, silent, and surrounded by broken satellites and lost hopes. But inside, 2 officers were wide awake, working the late shift. One was human, Officer Ryan. Hale, a tall man with tired eyes and a sharp mind. The other, his partner, was alien Valina of Shakru, her skin rough like stone, and her eyes glowing faint green in the dark. They were friends, but more than that, they trusted each other. Tonight, they were scanning incoming cargo ships, looking for contraband. Most nights were boring, full of empty crates and grumpy captains. But tonight was different. Unregistered ship coming in, Ryan said, pointing to the screen. No beacon, no crew ID, no cargo logs. Valona narrowed her eyes. Let's take a look. The ship was old, patched with different metals, like someone had built it from junk. It docked slowly, and the airlock hissed open, revealing nothing. But shadows inside, no captain came out. No voice answered their hail. Creepy, Ryan whispered. They entered with their weapons drawn, flashlights cutting through the dust and darkness. The ship smelled like burnt oil and something else, something worse. Valina gagged. This isn't just cargo. The hold was packed with metal crates, each sealed tight. Ryan tapped on one with his knuckles. Nothing, he said. Valina moved to the next, her fingers brushing the edge, then a sound. A soft, broken sob, barely a whisper. They froze. Ryan stepped back and listened again. There it was, cry. Like a child trying not to cry too loud. His stomach turned cold. Valona pulled out her scanner, but the crates blocked the signal. We open it, Ryan said firmly. It's against protocol. Valena reminded him, I don't care. He replied, with a few sparks and a loud hiss. Ryan broke the crate open. What they saw inside made both of them freeze. Curled in the corner of the crate was a small alien child, eyes wide with fear, skin pale purple, and ribs showing from hunger. The child flinched at the light, holding up tiny hands as if expecting to be hit. Easy, Ryan said softly. You're safe now. Valona crouched down, speaking gently in 3 alien languages before the child responded. My name is Luma. She whispered, please don't send us back, us. Valina asked, looking around. One by one, they opened more crates. Inside each was a child, all from different alien races, all weak, all scared. Some were too tired to speak. Some cried, and some just stared. Ryan's hands trembled as he counted. Them 15 kids, packed like objects, hidden like cargo. Who would do this? He whispered. Valina's face was hard. I've seen this before, she said. Back when I was young. Ryan looked at her. What do you mean? Valina shook her head. Later, they called HQ and requested emergency medical teams. But something felt off. HQ didn't respond right away. Then a message came through. Stand down, ship is marked for return to owners. What? Ryan shouted. There are kids in cages here. Valona read the message again. Slowly, her eyes narrowed. This ship is registered to a front company known for biotrade. Ryan cursed, so these kids were being sold. The lights flickered. Suddenly, and the ship's engines roared. Someone's trying to launch it, Valena yelled. They ran to the bridge and found no pilot, just a remote activation module. Ryan ripped it out of the control panel, wires sparking in his hands. The engines died with a groan. They stood there, breathing heavy, hearts pounding behind them. The sound of children crying echoed through the hall. But one sound rose above the rest, tiny voice calling, please don't leave us. Ryan looked at Valena, his face tight with emotion. We're not, he said, no matter what happens. But deep down, he knew this was just the beginning. Something big was behind this, and now they were in the middle of it. *, the children had been moved to the medbay on the station. They were given warm blankets, food, and a quiet place to rest. But they didn't smile. Not even once. Some still shook in fear, even while they slept. Officer Ryan stood outside the med bay window, arms crossed, staring at them in silence. Valana joined him, her face unreadable, her long claws clicking softly against her belt as she walked. "They've been through more than we can imagine," she said quietly. Ryan nodded slowly. "We need answers." They returned to the station's control center. The logs for the ship were still uploading, but something strange caught Valana's eye. The papers said the ship was carrying exotic goods, authorized by a company named Trilocor Logistics. Ryan raised an eyebrow. "I've heard of them, mostly rumors." Valana's fingers danced across the screen, pulling up information from back channels. "Rumors are true," she said coldly. "This company has ties to the black market, A." Soft ping came from the comms. A message had arrived priority level. Locked with encryption, Valona cracked it open in seconds, and the screen displayed a short, chilling line. "Do not interfere with property, or both of you will disappear." Ryan leaned forward, reading the message again. "They know we opened the crates," he said slowly. Valina's voice was flat. "They're watching us." Ryan felt a shiver run down his spine. He knew what this meant. They were stepping on someone powerful's toes, someone who didn't like being exposed. But he also knew something else, something deeper than fear. He wasn't going to let those kids go back into cages. Later that night, as Ryan reviewed the files, one small detail stood out. Every child had a fake ID tag implanted. The serial numbers didn't match any known adoption network. One number, though repeated twice to different children from two different species. "Copy tags?" he muttered. "Why?" He took the data to Valona, who sat quietly in the shadows of the weapon locker room. Cleaning her blaster, her expression turned dark as she examined the numbers. "These tags. They were used in another case 2 years ago," she said. Slowly. "What case?" Ryan asked. Valena stood up, her hands tightening. "A group of children went missing from a neutral colony. They were never found. A call came in from the security chief of the station. A bulky alien named Commander Reth. He didn't hide his annoyance. 'You two need to stop digging,' he said. 'This isn't your problem,' Ryan spoke. Calmly, 'There are children involved,' Reth snorted. 'And if you don't stop, there'll be more than children disappearing.' Then he ended the call without another word. Silence filled the room. Valina stared at the blank screen, her eyes burning. "I've seen this before," she whispered. "They cover it up." "Always." Ryan looked at her, puzzled. Valona didn't speak for a long moment. Then she said, "My younger sister was taken during a raid on our village. They said she died in the fire, but I found a photo 2 years later. She was in a cage." She clenched her fist. "I joined the force to stop this from happening again." Ryan placed a hand on her shoulder. "No words, just respect." Then his communicator buzzed. A voice whispered through static. "If you want to know the truth, come to Dock 9 alone." Then the signal went dead. They exchanged glances, both knowing it was a trap, but neither of them hesitated. They armed up and walked into the shadows of Dock 9, where something waited for them, something dangerous. Something that didn't want the truth to come out as they stepped into the cold docking bay. The lights flickered. A figure stood by a crate, face hidden under a hood. "You have no idea what you've stepped into," the figure said, "but it's too late to walk away now." And from behind another crate, something metal clicked up. Weapon being loaded, Ryan turned, heart pounding. They weren't alone, and the ones in the shadows were ready to kill to keep their secrets buried. The dark hallway leading to Dock 9 was colder than it should have been. Ryan's boots echoed as he moved, each step slower than the last. Beside him, Valina stayed silent, eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. The strange message still rang in their minds. If you want to know the truth, come to Dock 9 alone. But they weren't fools. They never came unprepared. They reached the end of the corridor, where a flickering light swung above a large metal crate. A hooded figure stood beside it, unmoving, silent, the moment Ryan stepped forward. Two more shapes appeared from the shadows, weapons raised. Velena didn't hesitate. She drew her blaster and aimed it straight between one of their eyes. "Try," she said coldly. The tension was thick, but the hooded figure raised a hand, signaling the others to lower their guns. "You've already stirred the nest," the voice said, raspy and low. "Might as well hear the buzzing." Ryan stepped closer. "Who are you?" The hooded figure pulled back the cloak, revealing a wrinkled face covered in old scars and cybernetic patches. "I was like you once," he said. "Thought I could make a difference." He opened the crate beside him, not filled with weapons, but with screens, data chips, and files. He handed over a drive. "These are auction logs," he said. "Real names, fake names, client codes, everything." Velena narrowed her eyes. "Why give this to us?" The old man's voice cracked. "Because they took my daughter. She was sold like a pet to a rich clan on Zarthon Prime. I tried to get her back," he added, "but they buried me. Erased my ID, destroyed my rank." Ryan took the dog, feeling its weight like it was a live grenade. He plugged it into his wristpad, and a list opened up, long, detailed, terrifying. Children's species, origin planets, dates of transfer, and buyers marked only by code names. Velena froze when she saw one entry: Chakran child, female, matching her sister's profile. Entry status: delivered, it said. Destination: auction lot 38. Her breath caught, her claws clenched, but her voice stayed level. "Where are these auctions held now?" she asked. The old man tapped a section of the map. "Asteroid outpost outside regulated space. Coordinates here. Guarded, illegal, mobile," he added. "But still running." Ryan looked at the path. "That's 2 jumps from here." "They change location every moon cycle," the old man added. "You've got 1 shot." Back at the station, they lied on their reports, said the ship was empty. No evidence, no leads, just an abandoned wreck. Burned out, left for salvage. Commander Reth didn't question it. But his smile was too wide. He knew they were hiding something, and he let them, which made Ryan even more uneasy. They took an unmarked patrol cruiser, modified its signature to look like a smuggler scout. Velena changed into mercenary-style armor, and Ryan wore dusty clothes, dark and plain. They were no longer officers. Not tonight. Tonight, they would become shadows. The asteroid outpost looked like a giant metal spider clinging to rock, surrounded by gun drones and beacon jammers. Their ship was scanned the moment they approached. A voice crackled through. "Purpose of visit." Ryan replied in a rough voice. "Buyers from Aresta system, looking for rare flesh." Silence followed. Then, dock at Bay 12. Inside, the air stank of oil, sweat, and perfume. Velena's stomach turned as she saw alien children in cages displayed. Behind glass-like art pieces, buyers walked around with drinks in hand, laughing, pointing, placing silent bids through wrist devices. A small, winged girl flinched when someone knocked on her glass. Ryan's fists clenched, but he kept moving. In the central auction room, lights dimmed, and the next item was wheeled in, a small, trembling creature with silver skin. A rich alien in golden robes raised the first bid. Another added more, and the numbers climbed. Ryan felt sick. But he scanned the room quickly. At least 30 buyers, half of them armed guards. No exit signs marked. All private paths locked. They were deep inside a trap. Then his pad vibrated. One of the kids, from the medbay, was listed for auction. Lot 42, coming up next. Velena looked at him with fire in her eyes. "We're ending this tonight," she whispered, and Ryan nodded. pulling a small device from his Bhutan explosive signal trigger with one push. Chaos would begin, but they had to time it just right, because if they failed, the children wouldn't be saved. They would vanish forever into cages that had no keys. And right now, every second mattered. The air inside the auction room felt heavy. Not because of heat, but because of silence. The kind of silence that feels fake, like something terrible is about to happen. Ryan and Velena stood near the back, close to the stairs leading to the private viewing deck. Around them, buyers whispered in low voices, watching the next child get pulled onto the stage, a small boy with blue skin shivering under the spotlight. The number 42 flashed on the screen above his head. Velena's fingers twitched near her hip, where her hidden blaster waited. Ryan's thumb hovered over the signal detonator in his coat pocket. One click, and every locked gate would open, every alarm would go off, and every smuggler would panic. But the timing had to be perfect. Too early, and the guards would shoot the kids. Too late, and another child would be sold to a monster, Ryan. Locked eyes with the boy on the stage, the boy looked right back at him. Not with fear, but with hope. It broke something inside Ryan. Something quiet and cold. He pressed the trigger. Instantly, red lights flashed, alarms screamed, and the power flickered. Metal doors slammed open, and a loud voice shouted, "Unauthorized systems breach." Chaos exploded across the auction floor. Buyers screamed. Guards drew their weapons. Children banged on the glass walls of their cages. Velena pulled her blaster and fired at the nearest lock. The glass shattered. The small boy stumbled out, and Ryan grabbed him, lifting him into his arms. "Stay close," he said, voice shaking but firm. "You're going home." Guards rushed in from the upper levels, their armor shining under emergency. Lights Velena rolled behind a support beam. Firing controlled bursts that knocked out the first wave. Smoke filled the air as Ryan released another cage. Then another. More children ran out, crying, coughing, but alive. "We need to move." Velena called, "Back doors this way." But nothing went as planned. Behind them, a heavy gate slammed down. Blocking the hallway, another squad of guards appeared from the side corridor, cutting off their path. One of them raised a sonic cannon, aiming at the group of kids. Without thinking, Ryan charged forward, grabbing the cannon barrel and shoving it aside just as it fired. The blast hit the ceiling instead, collapsing part of it in a shower of sparks. Ryan took a punch to the ribs, but still fought on. Swinging his elbow hard into the guard's faceplate, Velena covered the children, blasting another lock and yelling, "Run! Take the tunnels." A small, furry child hesitated. Then grabbed the other's hands and led them down a narrow shaft near the ventilation unit. Smoke trailed behind them. Ryan stumbled after them, holding his side. Velena pulled him down just in time as a guard fired from above, missing them. "By inches, they won't stop," she growled. "They'll hunt us through the station." Ryan winced. "Then we don't give them a trail." He reached into his belt and pulled out a pulse grenade. Velena stared. "That'll take out every scanner on this level." "Exactly," Ryan replied, and threw it back toward the auction floor. The explosion shook the station, shorting every light, every alarm, every camera. Darkness swallowed everything. They ran, half crawling through tunnels filled with wires and pipes. Behind them, angry voices and stomping boots echoed. But they kept moving. The children didn't cry now. They followed silently, scared but brave. Each one knew if they stopped, they'd be taken again. Finally, they reached the maintenance bay, a quiet place full of old junk and broken ships. Ryan dragged open the side door of a small freighter. Inside, he whispered, "Everyone." Velena covered the rear, watching for shadows. When the last child climbed inside, Ryan shut the door and fired up the engines. The system blinked red, sputtered, then roared to life. A guard burst into the bay, firing wild shots, one bolt. Struck the side of the ship, but didn't break through. Velena returned fire, hitting the control panel above the guard's head, dropping metal rods down on him. "Go!" she shouted, and Ryan hit the thrusters. The ship lurched forward, blasting through the outer bay doors and into open space, alarms from the asteroid. Outposts followed them like screaming ghosts, but they didn't stop. Ryan kept flying, even when the warning lights blinked. Even when the ship rattled, he didn't stop. Not until the station was nothing but a dot behind them. Inside, the children sat quietly, pressed together like a single frightened heartbeat. Velena looked at Ryan and for the first time that night allowed herself to breathe. "We did it," she said softly, but Ryan shook his head. "No," he whispered. "We started something, now we have to finish it." The stolen freighter drifted quietly through a forgotten stretch of space. Stars outside blinked like silent watchers, but inside the ship, it was quiet, too quiet. Ryan sat near the controls, hands still trembling from the escape. His jacket was ripped, his side bruised, but he didn't care. Velena stood beside him, scanning the nearby systems for somewhere really where they could hide. Behind them, the children huddled together. On the cold metal floor, they didn't speak, didn't ask questions. They just waited, as if used to being moved like boxes. Ryan's voice cracked as he asked, "How can anyone do this to kids?" Velena didn't answer. Not yet. The scanner beeped, showing a moon nearby, mostly abandoned. With only a few mining posts long forgotten by the galaxy, it was perfect. They landed in the shadow of a rocky ridge, hidden from satellite eyes. The air was thin but breathable. They opened the ship's side hatch and carried the children out one by one. Wrapping them in blankets found in the ship's storage bay, some cried softly, but most remained silent. Eyes wide and distant, Ryan gathered firewood from nearby supply crates, while Velena took a medical kit and scanned the children. That's when she noticed something strange. Their blood readings weren't normal. Not just hungry or weak-altered. She scanned again. Then a third time. Ryan walked over. "What is it?" Velena looked up slowly. "They've been enhanced." Ryan blinked. "What do you mean?" "Modified," she said. "Each one, different ways, better reflexes, sharper senses. Even emotional suppression." Ryan felt his throat go dry. "These aren't just trafficked kids," he said. "They were experiments." Velena nodded, her voice tight. "That's why the buyers pay so much. They're not just buying a child, they're buying a weapon," one of the older children. A boy with green eyes and thin silver lines running across his neck stepped forward. He looked at Velena, then at Ryan, and said quietly, "They called us projects. My name used to be 10-7. Ryan crouched beside him. "Do you remember where you came from?" The boy nodded. "A place underground, full of lights and pain. They told us crying is weakness. They punished those who cried." Ryan's hands curled into fists. Velena placed a calming hand on the boy's shoulder. "You don't have to go back there," she said. Later that night, under the faint glow of the moon's twin suns, Ryan sat with Velena near the fire. She looked into the flames and finally spoke, her voice quiet but full of weight. "My sister's name was Leisha. She said she was kind, quiet, always reading stories when the raiders came. They said she was dead, but something inside me knew they were lying. Years later, I found a transmission auction records. There was a girl, listed as Lot 38. Same age, same markings." Velona's voice broke. "I think she's still out there." Ryan listened without interrupting. He didn't need to say anything. He just placed a hand on her shoulder. And she nodded. Suddenly, the communicator on Ryan's wrist beeped. A scrambled signal came through a voice full of static and panic. "They know where you are," it said. "They're coming for the children." The message ended before they could respond. Velena stood, already loading her weapon. "We have to move," she said. Now Ryan nodded and turned to the children. They looked at him with tired, frightened eyes. But when he spoke, they listened. "We're going to keep you safe," he said, "no matter what it takes." The freighter wasn't fast, but it still flew. They launched into the dark once more, flying blind, running from ships with no names and guns that never missed. Behind them, the abandoned moon lit up with a quiet, flash-an explosion. They hadn't left a trail, but someone was watching anyway. Someone wanted the children back. Because to them, these kids weren't lives, they were assets, and Ryan realized something as he looked back at the children. They weren't just victims anymore. They were proof of something bigger, darker, and that meant they were dangerous. The stars above were endless, but there was no comfort in them. Ryan sat alone in the freighter's cockpit, the children sleeping behind him, their bodies close for warmth. He stared at the black space outside, but his thoughts were somewhere else, on choices, on consequences, on the price of doing the right thing. The controls blinked softly, showing a message waiting to be opened. It had arrived hours ago, but he hadn't looked. Not until now. He tapped the screen, and the message opened without a password. A familiar face appeared, Commander Reth, but he wasn't angry or shouting this time. He was smiling, calm to calm. "You've caused quite a mess." "Officer Hale," Reth said, "but all is not lost. You return the children, and we make it all go away. No charges, no demotion. In fact, we'll give you a medal. And your partner, Valona," he added. "She gets her citizenship restored, her records cleaned, her name honored again." Ryan paused the video, his jaw tight. It was a trap, of course. But it was also tempting because they were tired, hunted, and out of time. And the children were no longer just innocent. They were the evidence of something massive, something that could break the entire system if exposed. Valena entered the cockpit quietly, her steps light. She saw the frozen image of Reth on the screen, and her eyes narrowed. "They're offering a deal," Ryan said softly. "They want us to hand the kids back." Valana said nothing at first. Then she sat down across from him, looking tired but unshaken. "My people used to believe in honor," she said, "but honor died when they sold silence for power." Ryan looked at her. "You know, if we run forever, we won't win." Valena nodded. "But if we give up now, we lose something worse." She reached into her belt and pulled out a small chip data recorder. "These kids aren't just enhanced," she said. "They're proof, and not just of experiments. This chip," she continued, "contains internal logs I pulled from one of the smuggler ships." Ryan frowned. "When back during the escape," she answered. "I didn't tell you. I wasn't sure what I had." She slid the chip into the console, and a dozen files opened, full of names, locations, and worst of all, official government seals. Ryan leaned forward, reading in silence. Top-level military labs, civilian testing centers, orphan intake programs, all linked to a secret fund called Project Nest. Valona said the words out loud. "The same people chasing us, ... built this." Ryan leaned back, the weight of it hitting him hard. They weren't just dealing with smugglers. They were fighting something much bigger, a system, a hidden machine that stole children, erased records, rewrote truth, and now they had everything needed to expose it, but doing so would make them fugitives for life. Maybe hunted forever. And the kids, they'd never know peace. Ryan looked at the sleeping children, wrapped in silence, curled up like stars fallen from the sky. Then he made a decision. "We tell the galaxy," he said, voice steady. "We send this to every news channel, every rebel network, every whistleblower outlet. We burn the lie down." Valona nodded once. And they got to work the next day. They parked their freighter near a drifting relay satellite. Long abandoned, but still functional, Ryan climbed outside in a suit. connected the data chip to the core panel, and activated a burst transmission. The signal spread out like light through darkness. Every channel, every corner of space would now hear the truth back on the ship. Valona monitored the responses within minutes. Encrypted replies came pouring in: reporters, rogue officers, human rights groups, even old enemies. They all wanted one thing: the story, the evidence, the faces of the stolen children. But not everyone was happy. A new signal broke through military-grade, untraceable. A cold voice spoke just once. "You should have stayed quiet," it said. "Now none of you are safe." Then the transmission ended. And the tracker alarm began to scream. Ryan rushed to the cockpit. "Valona already pulling coordinates. 2 ships inbound," she said. "Fast armed, not friendly." Ryan fired the engines, and the freighter jumped, but barely escaped the missile lock behind them. The stars lit up with red as the first shots missed them by seconds. The war had begun, and they were no longer just rescuers. They were rebels now, with children who had no past and, maybe, just maybe, a future worth fighting for. The stars no longer felt empty. They felt like eyes, watching from every side, waiting for the next move. Ryan stared at the map, floating above the control panel, lines drawn, sectors marked red. Safe zones shrinking by the minute. Every route they took was being tracked. Every ally they reached had to vanish the next day. But still, the message had spread. The truth had bloomed like fire across the galaxy. And now the galaxy couldn't ignore it. Valona stood beside him, her armor scratched, her blade worn. She no longer looked like a peacekeeper. She looked like a fighter, because that's what they had become. Fighters for those who couldn't speak, those who were hidden, locked, forgotten. The children had changed too, not just their clothes or their fear, but something deeper. They laughed now quietly at first, then louder. They painted drawings on the walls of the freighter, stars and ships. Stick figures of Ryan and Valona holding hands with them. And one strange picture kept showing up in different colors. A place, green and wide, with a glowing sky and tall trees. They called it the safe place. Valona finally asked, "Where is this from?" A little girl named Myra pointed to her chest. "It's from my dreams," she said. Ryan looked at the drawing again, then checked the ship's map. There was a system far beyond the outer reach, marked as abandoned centuries ago. No patrols, no records, no settlements. Just a forgotten planet with a breathable atmosphere and a name long erased from charts. Ryan smiled. "Let's give your dream a chance." They flew for days through dust and silence, avoiding patrols, hiding behind drifting ice, skipping between black holes. When they finally arrived, the planet was more than real, it was alive. Green plains rolled beneath golden clouds. Rivers sparkled in the light of 2 suns. It was untouched, clean, pure. The ship landed gently near a mountain covered in flowers. The children ran out laughing, shouting, feet kicking dust and joy into the air. Valona watched them in silence, then whispered, This is what freedom feels like." But safety didn't last long. The system picked up a transmission coded urgent. It wasn't a threat, it was a call for help. Other officers, other rebels, even aliens who once looked away, now reaching out. They wanted to help, to protect, to build something new. One by one, ships began to arrive, landing in open fields and building homes out of shipwrecks and old parts. Scientists came to offering to reverse the damage done to the children's DNA. Teachers, doctors, warriors, all choosing to stand with them. They called the place Haven's Edge, a hidden sanctuary for the unwanted, the broken, the brave, and Ryan. He stayed, not as an officer, not as a soldier, but as a father. Some of the children started calling him Dad. Valina never corrected them when they called her Mom. But far beyond the peace of Haven, the system that built project Nest still existed, still hunting, still watching. One day, that system would come knocking again, louder, with fire and ships and lies. And when it did, Ryan would be ready, because now he wasn't just a rescuer. He was part of something bigger. He looked up at the stars with a tired smile. They wanted weapons, he said. But we gave them warriors. Valona stood beside him, her hand resting on her blade, and families, she added softly. Don't forget that, behind them, a group of children chased fireflies near the trees, their laughter echoing into the night, and the stars blinked gently above, not as watchers anymore, but as witnesses.